So anyway, yeah, like we go in, the dust was a little bit heavier than expected. And by that time there was, other people from the base that were driving out there, and the helicopter was burning. We didn't know if the helicopter had missiles on it, if they were going to cook off. And, where we didn't even know where the nose of the helicopter was. It was so mangled.
Hello, friends. I'm Norman Driggers, and you're listening to Your Finest Hour. This is a show where we explore pivotal moments that define our own personal journey. This podcast gets its name from Winston Churchill's famous quote about what a shame to be unprepared for what could have been your finest hour. Through candid conversations with guests who have faced their defining moments, we'll uncover some lessons in self-leadership that can help you prepare for yours. In each episode, we follow a simple but powerful framework where we recount the experience, reflect on lessons learned, and share recommendations you can apply to your own journey. Whether you're just starting out or looking to reach new heights, this podcast is for you. If you find value in these conversations, I'd be incredibly grateful if you'd share this podcast with others who may benefit from it. Your support in spreading the word helps the reach. And the more our community grows, the more resources I can invest in making the show an even better experience for you, the audience. Every little bit helps, and I'm greatly appreciative for it. So without further ado, the episode. Esco, welcome to the show.
Norm, glad to be here, bud.
What's up, man? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Wesley Esco. I was a 60 guy, helicopter gunner for about 6 years. I was in the military for 10 total. Started off as a physical therapy assistant and deployed doing that, and kind of decided I wanted to do something a little bit different, right? So decided I wanted to join the 60 community, the rescue community, and did that for about 6 years. And then I just got out back in September. So ended up getting out as a staff sergeant, and 10 years total.
Where are you originally from?
Lumber City, Georgia. Yeah, real small town, dude. It's like, one of those little one red light Georgia towns. And my mom lived in Lumber City, and my dad lived in Tifton. Went and spent a couple years with him. And they're like an hour apart. Tifton's a little bit bigger, so little breath of air there. But
yeah,
Lumber City was great too, dude. I think we're gonna go out and build a house out in Lumber City. My grandpa has a little bit of land out there, so hopefully in a couple of years, we can kind of retire to the farm.
That'll be sick. Now with the context, so spending 10 years active duty Air Force, I am now becoming the guy who thanks other people for their service, and like I genuinely like mean that now, because the joke, like when we were like senior airmen and stuff like that, we like go see a dude and we're just like, thank you for your service, and we're just like completely fucking off.
Yeah, right.
But now, like, especially since you said you did 10 years, like, I know what that's like, so like it gives me goosebumps. First off, United States is the greatest fucking country like on earth. Like, I genuinely believe that. Yeah. And so when I meet guys that are like, oh yeah, man, like I did 9 years or I did like 6 years or whatever, I'm just like, dude, thanks. Because now that the economy's fucking going to shit, like, now people want to join, but I'm like, where were you little bitch? Like,
yeah, right. Now you're just wanting some money, right? Dude, literally, I think it was like this past Wednesday, I was over at these, doing the AC on these people's house, and the husband, he was like a 35-year retired, full bird. He was an Army guy. He did medevac for the Army, so he was a helicopter pilot.
No way.
Yeah, no shit. He did dust off for like fucking 20 of his 30-something years, yeah.
Man, I wanted to fly helicopters so bad, dude. I even have not a flask, like a decanter in my kitchen, and I think it's got like whiskey or like wine or something in there, but it's off Amazon, and it's just a globe with like a little helicopter in it. And I wanted to fly 60s so fucking bad not growing up, but like once I got like 5 years in, I was like, I want to fly helicopters. And I was like, I don't want to join the Army to do it, but I want to fly helicopters. And lo and behold, 60s were the only like option or whatever.
You can always go CVs,
Dude,
not really a helicopter.
I think they're shutting that whole program down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they're putting what they have left in storage, right?
Jeez.
Yeah.
What a I had a buddy unfortunately pass, which kind of like put the I hate to say it this way, but like finalize the process, like put the nail in the coffin or whatever for the whole like process. He was a
Yeah.
WIC student and graduated, went off to do his like tier 1 or whatever, like his first like, weapon school job. And they were overseas, dude, and just like I'm sure you've heard about like the CV-22 crash and stuff like that, Gunman 22. But
Yeah.
yeah, dude, it was just super shitty.
He was on that.
Yeah, he was the mission commander. He was the left seat, yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
shit, dude.
Yeah, it was super. I mean, there was a bunch of guys on there. Yeah, it was
I
super
was
shitty.
I was a left seater during my last deployment. I think we kind of structure our stuff the same way. We call them lead smalls, but I was for our formation, normally the lead bird, the uh guy in the left seat is like they call him the lead small, right? He kind of doesn't really do anything different than anybody else. It's just, I guess, a title. I don't know. I mean, there was people there that were a little bit more capable than me, I'm sure, right? But I got put in that position, so yeah, didn't do anything different than what anybody else did, really.
Yeah,
But
that's
it
funny.
was, I guess, the title was something.
EPR fodder.
Yeah,
All right, dude. So as a 60 guy, you spent years training to be the guy who could pick anyone up anytime, anywhere, and under any circumstance. What happens when you have all that capability? Someone goes down and you have no control over whether you can go get them or not.
yeah, dude, it sucks. There's no amount of training that can really prepare you for that, right? Um, you obviously give your all during training for years. I mean, even the pipeline before like starting being a special missions aviator until you're like fully mission capable, like a deployable airman. Because whenever you get to your first unit, there's still, stuff that you have to do before you can, you're all graduated, you have everything, but you don't know how to do all these other aspects as far as, day water, night water, lives training, miniguns, there's all other kinds of stuff that you have to learn before you're ready to deploy. So the whole thing, I mean, it honestly probably takes about 2 to 2.5 years. And, the whole time you're training to be the best, right? Uh, you know, as you just said, anytime, any place, under any circumstances, right? And then you kind of forget, or nobody really prepares you for, yeah, like that's true. You can do that, high sea, side of a mountain, anywhere. But if you don't get the launch authority, then, you're not going. So it's tough, man, and nothing can really prepare you for that. And then you have this moral or like ethical battle that you deal with just watching people, suffer, and then you're not able to get launch authority to go and pick them up, even if they're, 10 miles outside of the, base that you're at, or like the fob or whatever. You still don't, you can't go get them.
Has that happened to
So
you?
yeah, it has. Yeah, multiple, yeah, a lot of times. So, it definitely brings up like a moral code deal, that others may live is for all others, in my opinion, right? And that's all it is, right? It's just my opinion. It's not, the view of anything else, but uh, it's that all others may live, not that, you know, we get to go sit in an air conditioned talk and watch all this horrible shit happen and not go get them, So it sucks, man. It does.
What does that identity look like as a, because the rescue squadron, like those guys have to have just like some of the truest like identities as far as like we are the guys, like we were talking about earlier. What does that feel like?
Dude, I mean, you kind of feel like you're on top of the world, and I was talking with my fiance about this the other day. You, you get a little,
Congrats.
thanks. But yeah, dude, I mean, and this might sound shitty to say, but you kind of feel like God, you know what I mean? And a lot of people grow distance from any kind of like religion because they feel like they are that guy. Like I can pick, life out of the clutches of death at any time, under any circumstances, I can do that. And, just it makes you feel very prideful, and not pride in a good way, I would say. And I'm not saying this happens to everybody, but just like yeah, just feeling super prideful about, your life and where you've made it and stuff, whether that's, awarded or not. It just kind of comes with the territory of being able to, save lives.
Yeah. I was gonna say you kind of have to have this like this vibe to you They're like, you are the
Yeah.
guy. Much like the PJs. I used to listen to this podcast about like just special tactics, um,
Mm-hmm.
just like special tactics like airmen and stuff like that. Because I'm sure most people when they join, they're like, I want to do that shit because those are the guys
Yeah.
like doing all the cool stuff and like, going out and rescuing guys. And one of the lead instructors, he was at the weapons school for a while too. He was just like, dude, you have to just know that you're the guy, bro. Because like as soon as
Yeah.
you get into country or as soon as you go out for a mission, and you even
Mm-hmm.
doubt for a second that you have the ability to go and potentially save a life, like that's
Yeah.
it. That's a wrap.
Dude, yeah, and maybe it's not the arrogance, but it's definitely the blind confidence. You know what I mean? Because you'll get put into situations that you've never trained for,
Yeah.
right? Um, and you have to have that blind confidence knowing that you can solve a problem and everybody's going to be okay.
What's an example of that?
All right, so did a pickup out in Africa one day, right? There was a helicopter not too far out of base that crashed. All right, it was a South African group that was just there, helping out. They were bringing some soldiers back. And we have this balloon, hot air balloon that goes up that kind of, pulls a 360-degree scan of the fob we were at. And it caught this helicopter just do like a very steep, 90-degree and kind of turn under itself from a couple thousand feet. And they just run it into the dirt. So we launched on that and we've never trained, to do anything like that. Um, and the situations out there as far as landing a helicopter is brutal, right? So all that really fine dust is you can't see. It's not like an airplane, right? Like you're not leading the dust. You're falling into the dust, and we call it kind of being in like a ping pong ball because you can't see anything. You're in a hover and you're kind of going straight to your instruments, and you're relying on your special missions aviators to make sure you're not landing on rocks or landing on patients or anything like that. So anyway, yeah, like we go in, the dust was a little bit heavier than expected. And by that time there was, other people from the base that were driving out there and the helicopter was burning. We didn't know if the helicopter had missiles on it, if they were going to cook off and, where we didn't even know where the nose of the helicopter was. It was so mangled. Right. So it's all different things that you have to be aware of. Cause if we land off the nose of that helicopter that's on fire, does it have rockets? I mean, are they going to cook off at us? And the helicopter's so mangled and you do a low pass and see as much as you can. But anyway, we went to do an approach, botched it up a little bit. We were in, some pretty heavy dust. We couldn't really see anything as we were coming down. There was a rock or some kind of obstruction in the way off my right side. So I had a good buddy, Zach Newfrock. He was sitting right and he was like, hey, stop down. We need to move. And then when you start moving in a ping pong ball like that in a hover, it gets very hard. The helicopter can get a little bit squirrely. So we ended up having to go around and Shock 2 come in and, they were able to successfully, put the bird down. But yeah, it's stuff like that you don't really train for and stuff that you can't really train for here at Georgia. Cause I was stationed in Valdosta, right? It rains a lot. It's Georgia weather, right? There's no good brownout pits. There's nowhere to really practice your skills unless you fly out to Vegas or, somewhere like that. And I have, all kinds of stories like that of, having to have that blind confidence to do it, even though you may not have executed it to, perfection yet. But having to have that blind confidence is key because if you don't, then you're not going to save a life.
What happened to those guys that were in the helicopter crash? Were you able to save all of them or no?
No, most of them passed.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there was, I believe, one of the pilots made it with some pretty severe injuries. It was wild. We were all just kind of sitting to talk. It was midday. Everybody was just frantic all of a sudden for some reason. Like as I was walking in, I was like, "Hey, what's going on?" And I was on alert at the time. We used to do these 48-hour alerts, so it'd be 48 on, 48 off. So I was on my alert, and we saw the helicopter, or somebody said a helicopter went down. So we run out to the pad where we used to park the helicopters. You used to see black smoke and then, pilots and everything started running out. And, if everybody was dressed for the occasion as far as wearing flight suits and shit, maybe not, right? But anyway, I mean, we launched immediately. We got really good. We could go from, plugs, covers, tie downs, everything in the jet to off the ground in 5 minutes. I mean, maybe even a little bit less than that. Yeah, and we got off the ground probably within 4 or 5 minutes from getting the notification, and we flew over there, and it was I mean, you couldn't really make out even what it was, you know?
Yeah, that's got to be super heavy.
It can be.
I was going to ask what that process is like. So you kind of alluded to it, but in more depth. So as an ISR guy, as an intel guy,
Mhm.
airborne ISR, we go into country understanding that there's a list or series of objectives that need to be captured within a certain amount of like time frame or whatever. So for
Yeah.
us, it's very easy to, as close as we can, relate it to a 9 to 5 job where it's like, oh, you're flying 5 times this week or 6 times this week, and the only reason why you don't fly 7 is for the flying hours, like kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Crew rest, shit like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Or
It's
flying hours. Yeah. You can't accumulate so many within X amount of days. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. So let's say, I go and fly 6 hours or 6 days in a row or 5 days in a row, got my down day, and then I go fly another 5 or 6 or whatever. So that entire time, it's pretty standard. Like very rarely, unless someone's sick, do we get woken up in the middle of the night or are we sitting alert or like anything like that. That's just not what airborne ISR does. So what's that process look like for you guys? Boots on the as soon as you land in Africa, for the example, like what's that whole series look like?
Yeah, so whenever you land in Africa, we started off down in Kenya, right? And then we were the first people to, at least as far as the rescue community, to go up to BMA in a long time. Like we've had rescue there before, but I think it's been like, somewhere around 5 or 10 years since, a rescue access has been at BMA. So anyway, we went up there. We did turnover with the guys from Kenya, right? Got all the information that we needed. Some of them were already up at BMA waiting for us, kind of setting up the talk a little bit, but we flew everything in, like even, computers and everything that you need to be, fully mission capable. We flew all that in on helicopters and C-130s, and we, spent like, I'd say about a week. We had some leadership go out there before us, and we spent about a week getting everything set up. And then once we took alert, I mean, it's just completely reactionary after that. You'll plan training sorties and stuff like that, kind of keep everybody active, keep everybody's skill sharp. We had a little range across the runway that we go shoot at occasionally and occasionally multiple times a week. Just kind of keep everybody's skill sharp. So we had the J's there, we go do lives training and stuff like that. But when you get the call, dude, I mean, you could be in, and I've been there, you get in 2 o'clock in the morning, um, somebody will bust in the tent and, one of the words that they're going to say is Tokyo, Tokyo, Tokyo. Right. And that means, hey, there's a situation going on. Everybody get to the talk right now. And, as soon as you get to the talk, you could be sitting there for 3 hours waiting for launch authority or, in a case that I had, we got to the talk and we didn't even walk in. Right. Everybody was grabbing their footballs. Uh, you know what a football is.
Mhm.
I'm sure y'all had to carry those, right? Okay, so football is kind of like a little survival pack. I mean, it's got a radio, a couple of little things in
Oh,
there,
okay.
like an SKL, shit like
Yeah.
that.
We didn't call it footballs.
Um,
Yeah. That's funny.
yeah, exactly. So we called them footballs. So everybody grabbed a football and just run out to the bird. And I think from dead asleep to off the ground, ready to go execute a mission, it was maybe 10 minutes. Yeah, I mean, it's just completely reactionary. You could be in the middle of a training sortie and, you get a call to go do this. So, you'd have to go do it. And then C-130s would come down, meet you, give you gas, whatever you needed. But I mean, you could be in the helicopter for anywhere between, 30 minutes to 7, 8, 9 hours. Depends on, gas, what the mission requirements are, et cetera. So,
What was it like being in Kenya, dude? I did one deployment and we went down to Kenya for like a couple of months or whatever.
yeah.
And as we were landing, I saw like giraffes just like
Yeah.
sprinting past the aircraft. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. I was like, this is insane.
Yeah, dude, we spent a little bit of time down there, just kind of going supporting missions and stuff. But there was this LZ out there we named Hippo LZ, and it was literally just this huge marsh with like, I mean, I'm not kidding you, at least 200 to 300 hippos. I mean, and they were just always hanging around, so we'd steal a bunch of food. Well, we'd tactically acquire a bunch of food from from the DFAC over in Kenya, like a bunch of apples and fruits and shit, and we go put them on the helicopter and we go feed the hippos. So that was always a good time,
That's
right?
insane.
Yeah, and we go, like, hover, 10, 15 feet above them and feed them, and, saw a bunch of giraffes, and they obviously, are scared of helicopters, but it was a good time. Yeah. I had a really good time out in Kenya.
Yeah, man. So walk me through that deployment. You sent me a message about like you were sitting there to talk. You were 20 minutes away from uh, someone potentially that went down, and you weren't able to go get them. What happened? What was going through your head?
So, yeah, man, there's different, when you're fighting these proxy wars, right, there's different groups of people that there's, like, different tiers of people that get different amounts of funding from the US government. It depends on, say, somebody gets, night vision goggles and a radio compared to a lower class of, people that are fighting that, get an AK, right? So, within these different tiers, depending on how well equipped they are, depends on whether we can go get them or not. So, there was a firefight, probably 10 miles outside of base, right? Pretty, standard thing. There was a lot of firefights out there. And, I mean, this was happening, 2, 3 times a week. And we, called up to DJ to get launch authority. We didn't get launch authority. Um, we can't go get them. Our hands were tied. I mean, you can't just steal a $41 million
Yeah.
helicopter and, go do some silly shit with it, even though we all wanted to, right? So they all loaded the wounded into the back of like a Helix pickup truck, and they were kind of caravanning out, and they hit an IED and killed everybody when we were 10 minutes away, and you're watching all this like live feed as it's happening, right? So yeah, dude, it fucks with you a little bit, knowing that you're right there and you can solve every single problem they have, lickety split, like
Yeah.
no problem. Like I will come there in 10 minutes and I will fix your fucking problem. But we didn't and we couldn't. So yeah, some of this
Yeah,
stuff
man.
is a little bit hard to talk about.
I can only imagine, dude. Like we've obviously seen some just like super shitty stuff like going through our
Yeah,
lives. You guys see like your own echelon. Like that's just a whole different world to me, dude. Um, and
yeah,
so when you sent me all the stuff on this, I was like, man, I really want to like just have like an open conversation about this kind of stuff because I this is just a world I've never experienced, you know? Um,
yeah, dude. So for me, I don't want to step on any toes, right? I love my rescue community. I love like the people that we did get to pick up, the lives we did get to save. You know, it was great. But the times that we weren't able to go, or the times that we didn't get launch authority to go and pick these people up, um, it's a sad day.
yeah.
It really is. And I think it makes it even harder when, these guys are trained on the same base that you're at. Right, so we were there with the Green Berets and some SEALs and stuff like that, and, they were there training these locals to go out and fight this proxy war and stuff, so, I mean, you didn't know them personally by no means, right?
That never makes it hurt less.
It never
I
makes it hurt
I
less,
get you,
dude.
dude. Yeah.
I remember one time we picked some people up. This might be kind of funny. So we picked this one dude up, but on the ground after we landed, there was a dude wearing Adidas gym shorts and cleats, soccer cleats. Swear to God, dude, with an AK and a bulletproof vest, dude, just out there, just mobbing with the boys, throwing rocks at tanks, just having a fucking time of his life.
Oh man, dude, the
Yeah.
local that reminds me of just like all the deployments. Like we would get ready to go do some like operation or like just some, ridiculous mission or whatever. There's like 10 Rangers and there's like 100 of the local like Afghans or whatever. And like you said, these
Yeah.
guys these guys are in like polo shirts and like
Yeah.
like
With just those shitty, like, army bulletproof vests with, like, the dick flap on it. You know what I mean? Dude, they're over there just, like, vested up, man, seen more combat than anybody in America in the
yeah,
last 30
100%.
fucking years, you know what I mean? Like, these dudes live in war.
Oh man, dude.
Oh.
Yeah, how did you feel about so there a lot of veterans obviously like felt some kind of way when we left like Afghanistan the way we did. And not that this podcast is like overly political or anything like that, but tying it
Right.
back to just like your relationship with the local like populace and stuff like that, like did you feel any kind of emotions just like seeing it in the news? Were you deployed at that time?
No, I was getting ready to go out to Africa, yeah. I wasn't there. I've never been to Afghanistan.
Okay. Yeah.
My first deployment was to UAE, and my second one was to Somalia.
Okay. Damn,
Yeah.
dude, I was Somalia.
Oh, dude, it was.
Is that when you were flying out of Kenya to like go up to Somalia?
Yeah,
Yeah.
BMA's Baladogwe Military Air Base in Somalia, and yeah, that's where we did our deployment. Was in Somalia.
They gave a name to B-Dog. BMA is now the name of B-Dog.
But yeah, BDOG. Yeah,
Oh my
Baladogwe
God, dude.
Military Air Base. Yeah, their shit.
It's
I think it's always been BMA. I don't know, but here we can give a quick picture for the audience listening. All right,
yeah.
so this is what fucking B. Have you ever been up to BMA or BDOG?
Yeah, dude. Just before you get into that, what year were
Yeah,
you at B-Dog?
23, 24.
Okay. I deployed to B-Dog in 2018, and I
Mhm.
think that's before it was like a big thing. It literally was just like a dirt strip with like some of those like sand pillars or whatever. And I
Oh
know
yeah,
guys
yeah, yeah.
listening to this, they went to
The
B-Dog when it was
Hescos.
before that. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure they've been to B-Dog before, like before that. There was nothing. Like you were cooking your own food, like C-130s were
yeah,
flying in like stuff. And so it's
yeah,
just
dude.
crazy to hear that B-Dog is now like a named airbase.
Yeah. Well, so at least for I spent a lot of time there, right? So BDOG is or BMA is like this old Soviet era uh like air base, right? Like this super shitty, super short, rock top runway. And there's this old hangar there that like the roof's caved in. It's awful. So we were at the same air base that Black Hawk Down, BMA, that's where all that stuff took down
Okay.
or
I didn't know that.
happened. Yeah. So anyway, the roof had fell in on the hangar. I mean, it was just this place was awful, right? Um, and there was like some Alaskan tents, and there was a chow hall that like a couple of the locals worked at, but they didn't give a shit if you wanted to go in there and grill something up on the flat top. So we get back from late nights and go like raid the fridges and shit. But like the SEALs and the Army dudes, and there's a couple Green Berets that lived on the main side, and then you could do like a 10-minute walk and get to the rescue compound. It was I don't know what cardinal direction it was, but it was a damn 10-minute walk. So um yeah. But I mean it was cool. We kind of had our own little compound. We had our own talk. We had our own living quarters for, maintenance, the J's, air crew, and some of the support personnel that we had. And you're kind of just off in your own world doing your own thing. uh I remember quick little side story. I remember a C-130 flew in a bunch of like huge tarps for us one day because the tents were leaking so fucking bad, just from like burns or whatever. I mean, they're like 20-year-old Alaskan tents, right? So they like flew in a bunch of tarps, and we were like 550 cord tarps over the tent, so we wouldn't be getting waterboarded at night. So yeah, I mean it was fun. It was kind of like camping. So
God, dude, that's funny. That is funny. I remember we were getting ready to take off, and we are on that same dirt like strip that you were talking about.
yeah,
And the Navy guys were there, and they had this little like ISR, like small ISR, just like a UAV like type thing.
yeah.
And
Mhm.
the way that they would launch it was goofy, but the way that they would catch it was even weird. Like it was this like giant
Oh,
net.
the net. Yeah,
Yes, dude.
In between
Yes.
in between the taxiway and the runway. Hell yeah, dude. I almost run into that bitch one day. It was night and they were out there flying their fucking drone around. I was like, "Hey, 2 o'clock, is that don't turn right." Apparently it was a damn drone coming in. And there's no tower out there, right? It's just like some fucking guy on like a handheld radio, just like, yeah, sure, man. I mean, everything looks good. Winds 220 at 5 knots. Fucking clear land. You know what I mean? Like they didn't give a shit. It was just lawless.
Dude, yeah, exactly. It was lawless. That's
Yeah.
funny. Yeah, those guys were trying to catch one of those UAVs, and it came in and like I don't know if it lost link or like what, but I just see this. We're literally like on. I think we were on the taxiway, and
Mhm.
I see these guys out my like left side window or whatever. I see these guys just sprinting away from like the giant net, and I was like, "What are these dudes doing?" And I see this UAV just like crash into the ground. And I was like,
Hell yeah.
"Oh my God." Dude.
Fucking taxpayer dollars hard at work right there, dude.
There's a bunch of 19-year-old dudes out there just like
Oh yeah,
shoot.
just flying drones around and shit.
Oh
Oh
man.
yeah, dude. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I saw you said most of A flight, and so can you explain like the construct once you guys deploy as well? So I see you said that there's A flight, B flight. Like how does that whole situation work?
Yeah, so a couple months before you deploy, you'll be on what's called a hard crew. So you'll learn these individuals, two pilots and two special missions aviators. You'll learn anything, everything, inside and out about how they operate, right? So you fly with these people for about 2 months before you deploy, and everybody has the same building blocks, like base knowledge, but people like to do things a little bit differently, right? As far as reading checklists to get the helicopter crunk up or you know, uh, just all kinds of different stuff like that. So, uh, you'll know how these people operate. So there's not a whole lot of talking going on, right? Like everybody knows their job, everybody knows their duty, and everybody is, their skills are, super sharpened by the time that they get there. So there's two flights. You'll have like an A flight and a B flight because during alerts, right? Like we can't go out there and sit alert, 24/7, 365, right?
Got it.
So you'll split it up. So you'll bring 2 or 3 helicopters. We brought 3 helicopters, so we'll have a spare one or like a park spur. A flight will take alert for 48 hours and they'll turn it over to B flight. You have to go out to the helicopters or like you'll do a changeover brief. Everybody will go out to the helicopters, get their gear because all your stuff is staged. Like you don't have to bring shit out to the helicopter. If it's getting bad and you're wearing board shorts and flip flops, I mean, run out there. Your vest is there, everything, like your gun, everything's loaded, everything's ready to go. You know what I mean? The only thing you have to do is throw a vest on, throw your helmet on, and, start flying. Yeah, and then, B flight will take over and then just et cetera through the whole deployment. So there's no breaking coverage of the AOR.
What's the squadron? So with 4 guys in an aircraft, 2 enlisted, 2 pilots. What's that culture like in the squadron?
Oh, dude, it's you got to be careful. You get in trouble sometimes if people walk in, that aren't from the rescue community. Because I mean, everybody just like bro and man, and there's not a whole lot of calling people by rank and name, right? Just because it's important to kind of cultivate that culture of teammates,
Mhm.
so there's not a whole lot of like over respectfulness going on. You know what I mean? I mean, you don't go up to a pilot and be like, "Hey, yo, Norwood," or "Hey, Llama." Like if they have a call sign, you can be like, "Hey, Llama," or whatever. But you don't have to go over and like, you know, Major Norwood, so and so reports as ordered. You just ask them a question like a normal human being. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So it's very lax culture
Yeah.
to answer your question. It's
Yeah.
and it's important to, as I said, to have it like that to, make sure that because everybody has to watch each other's backs, right? The pilots aren't shooting the guns. We're shooting the guns. We're protecting the pilots. The pilots are protecting us by not putting us in a situation like that. And everybody has to work as a team to make sure that nothing bad happens. If there's deep respect that happens between everybody in the crew, all the support, everything like that, but it's not to like belittle somebody with rank, right? Nobody was out there like, "Hey, Staff Sergeant Esco," it was like, "Hey, Esco." So yeah, pretty chill. Probably the same thing, around the U-28 community, I would assume.
Yeah, so that's part of the reason why I asked too, because the U-20 so I was raised up in the U-28 community almost entirely, but
Mhm.
with the nature of my crew position, I can jump all of the AFSOC platform. We have a universal Form 8. So like I can
Oh
fly
wow.
on yeah, I can fly on really anything. And then anything AFSOC, and then I can fly on most Intel aircraft across ACC as well. So like EC-130. Obviously I need to get trained in the specific crew
Right.
position, but if anything, that has actually put a wedge in the relationship building and the team cohesion, like you were talking about earlier,
Mhm.
because when you rotate so often, crews can't really get used to your personality. And so
Yeah.
that's why I personally picked U-28s, stuck with U-28s, because like now all of my friends or most of my friends are U-28 guys. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, even a 4-man crew for us versus a 4-man crew for you guys, like could be completely different. Like you could
Yeah.
be just ignored and just, yeah, it's weird, man. It's weird.
Oh, you're always fighting for some kind of position in the stack, you know what I mean? Like,
100%.
don't forget me down here. Even like doing red flag, you know what I mean? Like, there were points when we were doing red flag out in Vegas where we would just kind of get down about 50 feet at night, like across, some of the ranges out there, across the valleys. And we just, kind of fly, hang out. I mean, nobody could pick you up on radar. Nobody give a shit about talking to you. You know what I mean? Because they're all up there doing their dog fighting and whatever they need to do. So we're down here like, don't forget about us, but don't shoot us down, And we're just kind of like trucking along to go pick up somebody that got shot down, quote unquote. And they will get there and we'll kind of sneak out. We get so low to the ground, and it's really fun during the day, right? 'Cause you'll get super low to the ground, and your radar, I mean, you kinda look like a semi truck just driving down the road. We'll just get, like, right over one of those old, like, shitty dirt roads and just fly, like, 60 knots and 60 feet and just everybody up there at, 30 to 60, 70,000 feet, they either ignore you or they don't even know you're there because they think you're a damn semi truck going down the road, so
That's
then we'd sneak
insane.
in. Yeah, and then, like, the debriefs would be like, "Yep, got them all." They're like, "Where the fuck were you guys?" We're like, "Oh, just disguising." Just camouflage.
Yeah, what kind of stuff are you guys worried about, as far as, like, getting communicated to you? Because I remember sitting in a few of the '60s briefs at weapon school, and it
Mhm,
was mostly timing related. It was like, to your point, everyone else is dogfighting. Soft is off doing some kinda, like, infill, exfil off in their own, like, world, and the '60s were just like, you say a word over the radio, they show
mhm.
up. You say another word or they say a word to you and they're gone. And I'm like,
Yeah.
where are these guys?
Yeah, dude, you're just like we're in the nobody really talks to us too much, which is nice because we can kinda stay down low, do our own thing, um, especially when there's, like, a big air war going on above you. I mean, if you're in an environment that's littered with, like, small arms and stuff, you obviously don't wanna do that. But yeah, dude, it was super easy, and there's not a whole lot of communications that go on for us to be able to, go because all of our pre-planning is done before we go execute, right? Like, hey, there's a guy down, this is his location, this is C cell, ping. He's not planning on moving, he's not injured, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, so it's not too bad. I remember I got a quick story about red flag one year. So they actually jumped I think it's like some PJs hooked up to like a C-130 pilot, and they tandem jumped in. So this was like the fourth day of red flag, and we thought they were notional, but they weren't. They were out there for like 4 fucking days. They're
No
like, "You
way.
guys need to go pick this dude up." We were like, "What do you mean? Like, he's notional?" They were like, "No." He tandem jumped into one of the fucking he was like with a sear guy and like a PJ and like just the sear they all were just like out there hanging out for like 4 fucking days. They were getting hungry and thirsty. We were like, "Oh, fuck."
Damn, that's actually kind of dope.
Yeah, that it was funny, dude. It was a good time. Well, it was for us. Oh, and then I got a video on my phone. We picked the guy up, and he was like, "We're just ripping through the mountains." You know what I mean? Just treating that 60 like it's a damn Ferrari. And I mean, just going negative G and just doing all kinds of silly stuff. And he started getting sick in the back, and he threw up. We gave him like a little puke bag and everything. He threw up, and he wasn't wearing any rank, so back to yeah, it's the same pilot, right? He wasn't wearing any rank. He looked like a younger dude. So I have this clipboard or like this 3-ring binder that, you can write notes on, stuff like that, kind of like a menu. And I like wrote on there, I was like, give me your boots. So he took his boots off and I like took them and set them up like in front of me, like between me and the pilots. And I was like, this will be funny, right? Dude, he gets off and he like puts his jacket on, right? And he had like a lieutenant colonel like chevron. I was like, oh, I was like, here's your fucking boots back, man. My bad. I thought I was being funny.
Just as some clueless lieutenant colonel just like looking
Yeah,
around.
dude, just no boots on, ripping through the mountains, the damn helicopter.
Do you have the photos from your Finney flight or just like even the green feet stuff?
Yeah. Dude, I got fucking green feet tatted on my ass in a Alaska tent by one of my buddy's fucking tattoo guns. He just fucking put on a C-130 and flew out there.
That's what I'm saying, bro. Your guys' culture is like so deep, dude.
Oh yeah, dude. It's huge, man. Like, yeah. Like there was a bunch of people after that first pickup that got their green feet. I think it was Christmas Eve we got that pickup. And anyway, yeah, dude, we all got back and, you know, it was kinda like um it's solemn, right? But nobody died, you know what I mean? It sucks they got, shot at and shot up, but, you get back and, you train so hard to do something, you obviously wanna have some kinda decorum, right? Because their buddies might not have made it or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
you're not out there high-fiving or anything like that. It's nothing like that, right? But, the feeling that you get after, working so hard for something for me, from the start of the pipeline to that deployment was like 5 fucking years, dude. And it's just nothing but, you know, training and going TDY and doing this and becoming an instructor and going and going and going. And you finally, do what you feel like you're put on this earth to do. And it gives you like a sense of pride, So we all kind of got back. We talked about it. And my buddy Packham, he's like the squadron tattoo artist. He actually does really good work. He was like, "Hey man, I got my tattoo gun." I was like, "Fucking let's feed it up, dude." I mean, what's a better place to do it than in an Alaska tent, in fucking Somalia? You have your shit, you got green ink. Let's hammer down. And yeah, so we all did it, and then I think we all took turns doing Packhams, or either he got his when we got back because he didn't want us fucking degenerates tattooing. But either way, right? Like, dude, we brought that tattoo gun everywhere. Like Vegas, red flag. There was one of our pilots, Carlos. Every time we go to like a Vegas TDY, he'd get another tattoo on a sty, and like we tattoo him. So it was like one was an alien, then like another one was a dice. Like every time we go out there, it would just be like some small tattoo on a sty. And anyway, yeah, dude, I used to get the stupidest tattoos. I remember one time I tattooed a camel on the top of this girl's toe in like a pool in Florida somewhere. You know what I mean? Just like
That's
in the
funny.
hotel room. Oh, dude, it was silly. I had no business owning a fucking tattoo gun either, but
So funny.
yeah, dude, it was wild. Yeah, but back to your point, it's very tight knit community. You know what I mean? Like, and it has to be because, I mean, helicopters are sketchy as shit. You know what I mean? And what you do is also, kind of sketchy. You know what I mean? Like, you can put yourself in a situation pretty quick to get harmed pretty quick, you know? So you really have to trust the people that you're with. And, trust also comes with, remembrance. You also want to remember those people, right? And what's a better way to do that than, everybody gets matching tattoos and, kind of like you're in love with somebody, I guess,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, man. Do you have any opinions on like the helicopter crash, in like BC and stuff like that? I see a bunch of people just pumping out like just false information on helicopter shit, just like talking about stuff they don't know.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a lot of people talking about shit they don't know about, right? I haven't done too much looking into it, but I'm sure there's a corridor around there, X amount of altitude. As long as you stay below that, helicopters have free range, right? So I'm assuming they were just off altitude. It was nighttime. Maybe, a little bit of complacency got to them, and accidents happen, and it sucks for the families, honestly. But I would, as I said, I haven't done a whole lot of looking into it, but people also need to realize that accidents, sometimes they happen. We do very dangerous shit. You know what I mean? Like even just training. I remember one time I almost got hit by a C-130. Like bad, head on, coming at the 1 o'clock. I mean, just full speed on altitude. I mean, right at us at night,
Holy shit.
zero loom.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, "What the fuck is that?" And I just started screaming, "Break down," and left, and the helicopter went fucking inverted with our base commander flying. You know what I mean? So, yeah, dude, it was wild. Like we were, it's just, yeah, accidents happen. So, I mean, fuck, dude, you put a bunch of 22 to 32-year-old guys in, multi-million or, $500 million jets and, helicopters and shit like that. Like, accidents can happen, but that's what makes us the most lethal fighting force on the face of the fucking planet because we train for that. You know what I mean?
And what's funny about that story is I would actually hedge my bets on the 23 to 33-year-old. You said the base commander was flying. Anytime I
Yeah.
fly with like colonel and above, I'm like, oh God, dude.
Yeah. Oh, dude. So I'll go into a quick quick synop or a quick story about that. So, Bones Cook, he was our base commander, right? Great dude. He got his call sign from throwing ninja stars out of the helicopter at bad guys because they were all Winchester, like they didn't have any ammo left. And everybody, at least in the rescue community, kind of used to, or maybe they still do, carry what they consider their battle weapons. So they'll have like a machete or just some bullshit. Now, I wasn't there. This was like '03 Afghanistan, I'm sure. But apparently they were all like Winchester. And his was ninja stars. He kept them in a dip pouch on his vest. And this is back when, high altitude stuff like that, the helicopter has to be as light as possible. And from what I heard, he was keying the mic saying ninja star, and he was flying along this ridge line throwing fucking ninja stars at bad guys because nobody had any bullets left. Like even the 9 mil, like the pistol ammo was out. You know what I mean? And yeah, so he got that call sign Bones, and great dude. We were flying. He was doing a check ride, night HAR, which is helicopter air-to-air refueling. And we were above altitude. I think they were below altitude. Just accident, dark night. 2 students up front. We were flying formation. They're tacking as soon as the C-130 started turning into us. They're tacking right off the lead bird. We were like 500 feet below the lead bird, or their collision avoidance system told them to break down and left, and they broke down and left directly into us. And yeah, then I saw it, and I was like, started screaming, break down and left. Helicopter went upside down, and we recovered pretty low. But yeah, dude, it's definitely, it's eye-opening how fast things can go bad. So back to the story about, those 2 Army helicopter pilots that, unfortunately had that crash. Shit changes really quick when you're flying. You know what I mean? I'm sure you've been in a situation before where everything's fine, everybody's just doing their job, and then something goes on, and then it snowballs, right? And then, that's how accidents happen.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'd like to go back to the that deployment you were talking about earlier. In the notes, you were saying that A and B flight either got retrained or got out after that deployment. What exactly happened, and like what taste did that leave in everybody's mouth that they wanted to like separate?
Yeah, it's kinda, I feel like, the same reason, and not everybody got out, but I feel like it was a pretty alarming number, right? Either retrained to a different platform, or, decided that this wasn't really for them. And I feel like it was just due to what we were talking about earlier. Your morals don't really keep up with, what you're told to do. You you start feeling like, why am I even here? You know what I mean? I've trained for the past, 3, 4, 5, 6 years to come and do this mission that I'm not allowed to do. And I just feel like it hurt a lot of people's feelings, right? That definitely hurt mine. I feel like saving a life is one of the greatest things a human being can do, right? And when you're just watching all this mass destruction day in, day out, and not being able to do shit about it, um, your moral compass just gets, real fucked up. The people that deployed after us, like, they had a little bit rougher than we did, right? Like, they picked up some kids that got caught in some crossfire, stuff like that. And it really fucks with your moral compass, right? You kind of start thinking maybe too much about who you are as a man, right? And what you want to be, and what this life is, for, and what it's about.
What are some of those thoughts look like for you?
So I took a step back, and I was like, why am I doing this? Right? Why am I sitting here day in and day out just for maybe the opportunity to, save a life, but watch, 100 to 1, right? You watch 100 people die, and you might get life story on one. And I was missing my son a lot at the time, right? I was missing my girlfriend, now fiance. And at that point, with spin up and everything, I think I was gone over 200 days the year before. I never really got any time, and I didn't want, something to happen to me and not ever get the chance or the opportunity to at least tell my son why I did it, And I kind of feel like that's what we're doing right now is about, But yeah, I feel like everybody, their moral compass just got a little fucked up. They didn't expect what was going to happen to actually happen. We thought we were going to be a lot busier compared to stories that we've heard about everything that's going on out there. And, we were all super pumped super excited to go and, you know, work, not just out dilly-dillying or, shooting guns on the range or, all the
Mm-hmm.
cool shit that everybody sees. We were there to actually put in work, save lives, come home alive, right? And bring these people back if we didn't do it. So, yeah, it's I think for me, it's what I didn't do that messes me up more than what I did do. And I feel like that's for most people, at least that I deployed with. It's what we didn't do.
I appreciate you sharing that, man.
Yeah, dude. It's emotional, you know. And a lot of people they're not gonna be able to put themselves in that shoe, given something or I'm sure people can relate on a different level, but given something all that you have for years and years just to be able to literally pick anybody up, right? Especially, they're 10-minute flight away from base, they're 20 nautical miles. We can just go snatch them up real quick. It'll take no time, right? We have helicopters with guns that, I mean, are just absolutely lethal. You know what I mean? We carry miniguns, we carry 50 cal, machine guns, and
Ninja
we can
stars.
solve a problem against light armor or any bullshit like that, lickety split, like no problem. All we gotta do is just scare the shit out of them, you know. But watching that happen, and yeah, not doing it, not being able to do it, it sucks.
Is that something you think about pretty often now, or is that something since you've gotten out not necessarily the emotion, but the constant reminder of those times kind of fades? What does that look like for you?
It fades, you know. I didn't think about it a lot right after the deployment, right? Everybody's still a little, giddy. Everybody's, excited to go home, see their family. And on our way back home, we stopped through Germany and did this, like resiliency kind of deal where we all had to go sit in a class and talk about our feelings for a week. And, you know, nobody said shit about it, right? About what everybody was feeling or, like you talk with your buddies about it, but you're not going to go talk to a therapist about it because they're not going to understand. Right. Even if they say, oh, I understand. I mean, a lot of people just kind of feel like that's not true. Right. So we'll talk to each other about it. And we all got home. We were super excited. And, a couple months later, things just kind of start to set in. Right. And I thought about it for a while. That's when I started having issues with, like my brain. And then, I ended up going to mental health for a while. I didn't really know what was going on. Kept flying, right? I didn't stop flying just due to mental health. That's a big, misconception for a lot of people.
What was happening to you?
Um, Really just that issue with, driving to work and ending up halfway to Savannah. I didn't know where to go. I didn't, really even think it could be a TBI. Nightmares, like reoccurring nightmares, but they weren't about the deployment, right? Just brutal, random ass nightmares. I mean, a couple of them were, but so that's what led me to, think that it was a mental health issue. Kept flying, and then I decided that, I can't do this anymore. And this is what a lot of people, at least people I used to serve with, all my buddies, like they don't know a lot about why I actually got out. But I was having a lot of, issues with my brain. The short-term memory, horrible. I can't remember the, question you just asked me. My fiance, I'll tell her a story or like we'll talk about something multiple days straight. And God bless her soul, but she doesn't correct me or say that she already knows, she just listens. But um yeah, and then I went to mental health and kind of decided that, it's time for me to hang it up. I didn't go for a med board. I wanted to fly all the way up to my last day, right? And did that, and I just wanted to kind of move somewhere that I could get away from it, right? So I moved, 3 hours north of Valdosta, moved somewhere that my reputation doesn't precede me, right? Nobody knows me here. And I run away, right? Just from the memories and from all the bad stuff because I didn't want to burden anybody else with it. That's one thing that I'm not going to change somebody else's perspective on or their perspective on what happens over there. I want, everybody to think their own way And yeah, dude, so I run away, right? My fiance and I bought a house up here, and the longer you're away from it, the the less you think about it. You know, it's tough, right? It's still tough. I remember when I first moved up here, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do what every veteran does, right? I'm gonna do real estate. Fuck yeah, right? But that led to a lot of just sitting around the house, you know. Um, and I was on some medication at the time that really made me feel super zombie like. And I went to a dark place there for a while, right? You know, just super depressed, just thinking about everything too much.
Dude, I hate to cut you off too. I just want to say this. Understand that the conversation that you're having right now, like people are going to listen to this, and there's a lot more people in your situation than I think you and I both like truly understand as you're working through all this stuff because like you're currently living it, right? And again, I appreciate you expressing all this stuff. This is like what we need. I feel like I'm trying not to get emotional myself. I wish 4 or 5 years ago I had heard this conversation kind of thing because
Yeah,
community is like the most important thing than anything, you know?
yeah,
Um, and so I didn't know that you felt like you had to like run away, um, just
yeah,
from
dude, I
the
did.
memories, the situation, and all the other stuff. Because if anything, like especially veterans, like we need to be closer to each other, you know. But
Right.
yeah, I do want you to, keep
Well,
expressing.
yeah, dude. I mean, and being close to each other is important, right? But at the time, I felt like being close to the people that
Mhm.
I didn't know if they felt the same way as I did, and I didn't want to burden them with those feelings. You know what I mean? I want my rescue bros to keep being rescue bros. You know, I couldn't cut it anymore. And I realized that, and that was a super hard thing to realize. It sucks when you know you can't cut it anymore and you're not gonna burden the rest of, you know, your rescue family to, you know, have them just string you along. You know, I mean, I flew up to my last day. Yeah, I mean, I've never done like a long-term DNF. I mean, I was about it, you know? And when you realize that you just can't do it anymore, you just, you know, it's a hard thing to just quit and not really tell anybody why. You know, I mean, everybody I'm sure thought, you know, oh, he's wants to spend more time with his son. He's going to go do some super successful real estate career and blah, blah, blah. And when that wasn't the truth at all, dude, I just wanted to run away.
Yeah.
I didn't want the feelings, the emotions anymore of, you know, because you see the same people every day that, you know, you deployed with. And you don't know how they're feeling, you know, you don't want to talk about it. So at the time, that was the best option for me. And yeah, I've never told anybody really that, you know what I mean? Um, that kind of, you know, it sucks and makes you kind of feel like a coward, you know, but nothing makes you feel as cowardly as sitting at a talk and, you know, just watching people get fucked up and not doing anything about it. It was tough, so did the real estate, and actually here at Lake Wildwood, I met, a guy down because I don't know anybody up here. Nobody. No friends, not a fucking soul. It's just my fiance and I just getting after it, you know what I mean? Starting new careers, doing, you know, all different kinds of stuff, and I met this guy down at the boat ramp, and I ended up becoming buddies with him. His name is Charles Grant. He's a great dude, and, he was, like, starting up this boat, and we just struck up a conversation, hung out with him for a bit, and then, a couple months later, I was kinda telling him about some of the stuff that I was going through, you know, just being sad and stuff, not, you know, anything about the deployment and whatnot, but, um, he was like, "Well, you know, why don't you come and work a little bit?" You know what I mean? Like, get out of the house, you know, come to work at 7:30 in the morning, leave at 4, like, maybe it'll be good for you, right? He does HVAC, right? He got me on with this company called Harris Mechanical, dude, and I swear they saved my life, you know? I don't know where I'd be right now without those guys. It's just a good group of people, you know, we do as much fucking off as we do work, you know, it's all for the most part, it's all, like, kids my age and younger. It's like a little mom and pop HVAC deal, and I mean, just awesome people, awesome experience, you know, every day I'm excited to get up and go to work. Yeah, dude, and I haven't taken any, like, antidepressants or anything in a very long time now, you know, thanks to those guys, and it's been sick, you know? It's been a great experience, and we're living it, dude, we're riding the train and, trying to find new purpose, you know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Why do you think the transition out of active duty for veterans is so difficult?
I feel like people lose their identity, you know? When you're in the military, and especially when you get a little bit closer to some of these, units where, um, you know, people are so close to each other, right? What you do is who you are, right? I used to be Staff Sergeant Esco. I was a special missions aviator. That's what I did. That's who I was. You know what I mean? And when you lose that, when you get out of the military, you just go through an identity crisis. Yeah, and you feel like nobody can relate to you. It doesn't matter the like VA or the VFW, any of these places, right? And it's kind of like what we talked about earlier. I run away, right? I didn't talk to anybody really. I mean, I talked to a couple of my close friends, right? But yeah, I just kind of got out and just moved away and forgot all of that, or tried to forget all of that. And you just go through an identity crisis because you know, I'm no longer that guy like we talked about earlier. You know what I mean? I'm just Cole Esco now, and I do HVAC. You know what I mean? So you have to realize that it's okay to go through that, right? And you have to dig down and find deeper meaning, I'd say, to life, right? Like, who am I as a man? Am I a good father? Am I a good um boyfriend, fiance, husband, right? Am I there actually, supporting and being with my family? And then how can I get better at that? I mean, at least for me, I guess that's kind of how I found my identity again. Not by what I did, but who I am.
I was going to ask, what do you feel like you've learned from like everything you've experienced
Uh,
as far as identity goes?
that it's easy to find a new identity, right? It's easy to recreate yourself, but it's hard to forget where you come from. I mean, I can go out tomorrow, and be whoever I want to be, I mean, we live in the greatest fucking country on the face of the planet.
Amen.
We can do whatever the fuck we want. If I wanted to go out and wear a damn croaker sack and, a weird hat and go on a hike, I mean, I can do that. Nobody, I mean, people look at me funny, but whatever. You know what I mean? So just pick what you want to do or who you want to be in life and just be that person. Don't tie yourself to what you do for a living, as you are that person. I was never Sergeant Esco, a rescue guy, right? I was always Cole Esco, and that's what I did, not who I was. And I feel like I don't want to call it indoctrination because that's not the right word for it, right? But it's kind of like what we talked about earlier. It's the pride in what you do that can really get in the way from you reinventing the wheel. You reinventing yourself because you think that is who you are and that is what you do. Yeah, like that's it. And it makes life simple when it's like that, right? Because you don't have to focus on who you are as a man. You focus on how can I be better at what I do as a man. So if people just kind of take a step back and maybe realize who they are and better that, maybe it could be, life changing, really. Be the person that you want to be, not what somebody tells you do.
Yeah, a little bit ago, you kind of spoke to it being difficult to. I don't want to misquote you, but a little bit ago, you talked about like forgetting where you came from. Do you feel like people should forget where they came from?
No, because where I come from shaped me into who I am today. You should never forget, even though I tried to run away from it and forget. I feel like that was a mistake, right? Um, Maybe I shouldn't have run away, but at the time that was, the best option, at least that I thought of. Yeah, dude, who I would never be the guy I am today without the experiences I've had in life. Do you know what I mean? I feel like, and I'm not trying to like toot my own horn, but I wouldn't be as humble as I am today if I haven't seen some of the atrocities that go on around the world. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be proud of who I am as a man if I haven't lived through the things that I've lived through. We've all done silly stuff, you know what I mean? And, looking back on those experiences, it really just, uh, they're unforgettable, you know? I mean, rescue was some of the greatest years I've ever had, right? As far as what I did. Um, but I also missed a lot during that time. So yeah, dude, it can be tough, right? But taking a step back, realizing who you are as a man and not what you do to help define you is going to be it's going to be huge. I feel like that's, in words, that's what I went through, and my brain is probably a little bit more complex than that. But yeah,
How do you feel as if
how
your
resiliency
resilience?
kind of plays into that
Yeah,
experience. Yeah, dude. I mean, you have to be resilient every day, right? Um, at least for me, looking back on the memories and, some of the bad stuff, a lot of the good stuff, right? And you miss those people, right? Even though I kind of run away from it, I miss them terribly, you know? And being resilient to the point that, this is a decision that I made that I feel like is going to be best for myself and my family. And trying to forget some of the things that helped shape me into where I am today. Yeah, it resiliency definitely plays a huge role in that.
how do you teach resilience and resiliency to your son?
Oh, dude, every day, dude, he tells me he can't do something, or he gets upset about just something silly that he thinks is going to be life changing or life altering, right? And just being like, chin up, you know what I mean? Like, this isn't the end of the world. I know everybody hears that, right? Like, oh, it's not the end of the world, you know what I mean? Uh, but in a child's mind, little things can be the end of the world, you know? And I feel like as you get older, your resiliency changes, and as far as, kind of how you view life and view some of the obstacles that might come in front of you, right? That obviously changes. But in a kid's mind, dude, it's easy to solve simple problems. You can just be like, hey, dude, um, we'll use him riding his bike, learn how to ride his bike. Taught him how to ride his bike. There's a big hill in my front yard, more like a ditch. And I would just push him down it, dude. I was like, listen, the grass is soft, right? He was 5 at the time. I was like, we're learning how to ride a bike, buddy. No training wheels. And I just pushed him down that hill like at least 15, 20, 30 times until, he could pedal just a little ways. And I think that was kind of like a huge step in resiliency and knowing that he can do something, right, without making a, I don't want to say make a huge fuss out of it, because, learning how to ride a bike is, I'm sure, super tough for a 5-year old, right? But knowing that he can solve a problem is huge as far as teaching resiliency. And you also have to let kids make mistakes and solve their own problems. That also teaches, I feel like, some level of resiliency. Like, if he creates a mess or a problem, make him solve it. Don't just go and do everything for your children, especially now that he's getting to the age where, he's expected to pick up his toys. He's expected to do this, that, and the other. It's huge for kids to be able to solve their own problems. And that, I feel like that definitely brings some level of resiliency into it.
Would you ever share with him the story that you just shared, I guess, with us, quote unquote?
Yeah, when he gets old enough, I'll let him listen to this for sure.
Yeah.
Um, when he gets to the point that he can kind of understand, that's one of the big reasons I wanted to do this podcast, because I haven't really told my story, uh, the full story to hardly anybody. Right? This is for my family, for my loved ones, right? That they can know, like people that know me on a personal level. I mean, and obviously for everybody else that might be struggling too, right? But how people can, it, so my family can know how I overcome or how I solve this problem, right? And kind of where I come from, and the huge shift in who I used to be to who I am now.
hmm There's a crucial period immediately after an injury when life-saving medical or surgical intervention can offer the highest chance of survival. Do you have any do you have any stories about going to pick up a guy that was in his golden hour? Or did you ever experience like any of that?
No, I've never picked up anybody in their golden hour.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I was always in the lead bird, right? So we had the crow, which is basically the PJ mission commander with us. And it was always Chalk 2 that normally goes in and picks people
Mm,
up, right? Because we'll stay above. Mission commander, is talking to the Jays on the ground. And so as far as people like in my bird, no. Formation wise, yeah, I'm sure, but it's not something that I've actually seen personally. I mean,
yeah.
we've had multiple, patients one time where, twos went in and land, they pick up a couple, and then they'll go back up, and then we'll come in and pick up like, a more of a minor injury.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably a fortunate thing.
Yeah, it is a fortunate thing. And I'll tell you what, dude, a pararescueman is literally an angel, dude. I mean, these guys are just insane with some of the things that they can do, and some of the things that they're willing to do to save a life is absolutely humbling. You know, I've seen people do some absolute silly stuff, just to get the opportunity to, pick somebody up. I mean, hell, even for us, I remember we'd launch, right? If there was some big, tick going on with like troops in contact going on or whatever, we would like launch on a training sortie, right? And we just go hang out like at a safe distance away from it in case we got the call. You know what I mean? We were doing like contact EPs or something, just doing something silly just to make sure that we were in the air in case we got the call. And that kind of happened a little bit later in the deployment, right after what we talked about earlier, and not really getting launch authority to go get most of these people. We just would file a training sortie when we knew something was gonna happen, and we, at least be in the air in case we ever
Yeah,
got called.
just so you're close enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cut down on a little bit of time and hopefully increase survival rate or survival chances.
Last
Yeah.
question, dog. So you sent a quote that says, "Life often isn't always what you have pictured, and it never goes as planned. But believe in your purpose and find a deeper purpose and keep moving forward." What does that mean to you?
Everything, dude. Finding a deeper purpose is a must, especially for veterans that are transitioning out of the military, right? Because you've been taught so long that you're this person because of X, Y, and Z, right? But you're actually Cole Esco, a kid from Lumber City that, has dealt with some horrible shit, has also had some great times, and realizing that as being your purpose and not what somebody else tells you you are is huge. Finding purpose is for everybody individually, I'd say.
Dude, that's it, man. I got nothing else for you, dude. Thanks,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, dude.